Sirius XM 106, it is volume feedback. Nick Carter, Lori Majewski. We are blessed to be joined by the Australian sensation. You have seen her in many a movie. Neighbours, the soap opera. You've seen her in, if you're in Oz, you've seen her on the Australian version of The Voice, but you've probably heard her amazing songs. Delta Goodrem is in the building!
Yay! Hi, guys. So wonderful to chat to you.
Listen, before we go any further, I wanted to talk to you about this because I'm stunned by this. You know, Lori and I have talked to so many artists who have been in quarantine, who are finding new ways to connect with fans. And you started doing these bunker down sessions where you play from your house, you and your guitarist, Matt, where you're basically taking requests, which I think is insane because you know how fans are. Fans are so much more into artists' music than the artists are themselves. So I'm sure you're getting like guys that are like, I want to hear the B-side of Lost Without You that you haven't thought about for like the past 18 years. So I wonder, is this like, you know, I mean, you have to go back and like Google your lyrics or listen to your records. Is this like a blessing and a curse at the same time?
I mean, you've literally hit the nail on the head. The very first week that I said, okay, so I went through the process of, okay, the world is changing. Then I thought, well, how can I send my love out there? I thought, okay, every Thursday, bunker down, we're going to take in requests and just do a live performance from my living room. And the requests that came in that very first week, everyone's like, a B-side, exactly what you're saying, Nick, a B-side, this song Rise. I was like, I've never written a song Rise. What is everyone talking about? I don't know this song Rise. Why is everyone saying it? Sure enough, I Googled it. It was one of my songs. They definitely know my songs better than me. And it's been incredible because you go, well, this is an opportunity. We can play songs we've never done. We never do at the big tours normally. So it's been trial and error, I tell you that.
I wanted to ask you one thing before Lori jumps in too. I mean, because I'm sure she's, okay, so of course the new singles keep climbing, but Paralyzed, to quote the kids, I fuck with that song. And I wonder, are people assuming it was written about COVID, which it was not, I know that. But the first lines in it are, you know, Doctor paused this life, hold me. He told me you don't fly, cancel everything. You know, I mean, it's crazy because it sounds like you could have written it about COVID, but you didn't.
I didn't. I'm still wrapping my head around that myself because when it happened, I went, okay. We listened back to the record. We were all in the room going, okay, so, you know, how do we pivot and change with the music? Where does the music sit? And then when I listened to the song back, I started to go, I was like, oh, I'm not sure why this happened, but I did know when I went through a big reset in my life and why I wrote this song Paralyzed, that I knew there was a reason. And as fate would have it, everyone's going through a huge reset right now, and everybody has to kind of have a stop and a check-in with themselves about their next chapter of life. So I definitely realized that the song was made for a reason. And I wrote it for a reason. I don't know if I predicted this, but at the same time, the lyrics say, all of my plans have been silenced overnight. All that I know is paralyzed, when everything just stops.
You're Nostra Delta, love.
Yeah, I'm going to put it out there. When I write the next song, I'm going to really check what the lyrics are, what I'm putting out into the world. My other thing, Nick, interesting, and Lori, it was, I had said to everybody, you know, when I make this next record, I really want it to feel like everybody's in my living room. And as fate would have it, everybody is really in my living room at the moment. So that was my other thing on the record.
Well, one of the other songs that you sang during those living room sessions, I think it was I Honestly Love You. Well, and I have to say, Delta, I was going through your social media and I'm like, I know this woman. How have I met her before? No. I was obsessed with your Olivia Newton John biopic last year, okay? I talked about it on this very show. I had no idea how fierce, you used the word fierce, I used the word fierce, how fierce she was. Were you a fan before? And what did you learn about her that kind of blew your mind?
Well, Olivia Newton John was my ultimate idol. I remember the day I got signed to Sony when I was 15 years old. Literally, they said, who do you want to be when you know, as we go into this walk together with music? I said, I want to be Olivia Newton John. Like, she is my ultimate. She's a role model. She's a survivor. And I had no idea my life would twist and turn to have some parallels of being a survivor as well. But when we initially started, Olivia Newton John was just everything. And then she became my friend, a mentor. We wrote songs together. We recorded a duet together. And she really is a guiding light for me. And I know so many around the world. I was honored to play her in a biopic. Slightly terrified because you don't want to really mess up playing your idol. It would have been really heartbreaking, but I got to dive in and learn so much about her, Lori. Like it was really special finding the different songs, like Physical, Magic, and all of it. It was really incredible. She's a phenomenal woman.
Well, you both suffered from cancer. So I think that's something, I mean, I wonder if I don't know, did she choose you for the role? Because like, not only do you look like her, you are Australian, but to have gone through something that is such, I mean, we know her as a music star, but cancer, she's had cancer over the course of her, the last 25, 30 years of her life.
Yes. Being a fellow cancer survivor, when I was first diagnosed, Olivia reached out to me straight away and explained that this is a gift, and one day you'll see it as something, how you'll be able to help people and impact. Even in this last couple of months, I launched the Goodrem Foundation, and in partnership with St. Vincent's, who were the doctors who looked after me and who have continually kept me on a healthy path. And I truly understood in those scenes that it definitely was like opening different wounds that you step into and start to, I don't know, it felt like, wow, I can't believe I'm stepping back into this in the role and going into where I was at when I was diagnosed, or what it felt like in this chapter while I was also playing Olivia. But having that personal experience to bring to the screen in that moment was definitely, I think, cathartic and quite emotional, actually. I found when we did a lot of the hospital scenes, I would go home and feel the gravity of the emotions that people are still in the fight. And it was definitely a profound experience.
Well, Lori beat me to it, and shout out to you because I loved your cover of Xanadu, by the way. But
thank you. And again, that was like getting to sing the entire record. I was like, this is a dream. I don't know how I got this, but Olivia did. They did approach me, but Olivia was. I definitely talked to her numerous times about doing it until eventually she said, "You're doing this, right?" Yes.
Well, two-part question for you with regard to that, and stop me if I get too personal. But again, you talked about being a cancer survivor, which is fairly hardcore, and they say so much of the recovery is mental. And I wondered, because you were just diagnosed fairly young, I wondered how much of your music played a part in your recovery. And, you know, the body is a very intricate thing, and your body is your instrument. Did you fear that any of the physiological effects of the cancer would affect your voice?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, when it comes to, that was the first thoughts, obviously, when it came to voice. Firstly, I was 18 years old. I had just broken through in the music industry. I had just had my first album out. It had just started to break records. We'd had our third #1 single. The album was still at #1 the same week I got diagnosed. So I had just been flying to the UK doing the Top of the Pops. The album had just gone to #2. I kind of had that roll on of a trajectory in that first discovery, and my path was not meant to be that at that time. I had to go and focus on health, and it definitely changed my dreams step by step. But in health being the most important thing, obviously my doctors are very conscious about my voice. But being young, I feel, being 18, whilst a very impressionable age, and that stays with you, I felt that I had the same values before going into cancer. I always understood it, but there's one thing to know things and then to really know them from experiencing them. And so I really knew so much more, had a very different perspective. And when it came to music, in the first part of your question, I found it really hard to step back. It was as if the colours of the rainbow had gotten a little bit grayer, so to speak, for a second. And so I had to take my time to brighten up the colours again, because I think any cancer survivor would say to you that the next journey after you get through it, you're in fighter mode, and then it's like the shock of putting the pieces back together. And I definitely think when it came to music, there was just a dullness that just took me a minute. Even though I wrote my second album, and it was Mistaken Identity. I wrote with Guy Chambers. I had incredible mentors and guiding lights in my life. But it was definitely the next album after that. I was like, I need to shake it off again and find my color wheel in here.
You know, I lived in the UK for a little bit, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Neighbours, because if somebody's listening to this show here in the US, they may not know Neighbours. And
for sure. I don't presume they know anything to do with me. I'm completely like,
But it shows how important, I think.
I love her. Can I say I love her? I'm sorry. Aside. Go ahead.
No, the fraternity sorority that is Neighbours. Yeah. Natalie Imbruglia, Kylie Minogue, Jason Donovan, Margot Robbie, Guy Pearce, right? There's so many people who have gone on to big things after, and you obviously after Neighbours. I just wondered, when you take the role in Neighbours, are you already thinking of it as a springboard? Like I just always wondered that, because it's interesting how so many big stars came from that little Australian soap opera.
Firstly, it is one of the best schools an artist could go to, whether it be acting or any entertainment. They're a wonderful school where they are, if you're late, you're in trouble. If you accidentally take earrings home from set, then it was a really great school, you know. So, and you've got to learn your script so quickly. But my actual first step into Neighbours, when I got cast, there was an article in a paper that had said, "Hey Dad," which I was on a comedy show when I was a 7-year-old. So I got picked up very young when it came to the arts. I just was naturally sort of, they said, all right, she's in this show. I started working very, very young. And someone saw an article saying, "Hey Dad," which was a show I was on. Now Delta is doing music. Then the Neighbours producers saw this article and said, "I'd like to talk to Delta, because I cast her in a country practice, a different show when she was a kid. And I'd like to see if she wants to join Neighbours." Now, I thought I already had the role, right? I didn't know I was actually auditioning. I went to my audition, and then they called up and said, "We'd love to have like a singer on the show. Like, we'd love to have Delta doing her music on the show." I said, "Oh, well, that's fantastic. I thought we were going to do this. I'm ready to go." But they sent me a script that was the bad girl. Basically, it was the troublemaker of the group. And I called the producers. I was 16 years old. And I said, "Listen, my music is really my heart and soul here. And I don't think I should play the bad girl, because everybody at home will think that I'm a mean person."
You did not.
I did. I swear to God. I called them. I'm 16 years old. My parents are outside the office going, "What are you doing?" I hadn't had a hit at this point. And I said, "Listen, I've written this song called Born to Try, and I really think that it would be, you'd be misusing me by putting me in this role. I think we should write a different role."
Wow.
And the producers were so stunned that they said, okay. He was the kindest soul, this producer of Neighbours, Peter Dodds, I remember, and he said, "Okay, well, what have you got in mind?" And I sent him Born to Try, and that was my very first #1 hit, was Born to Try. And so it was worth the rewrite. But I was happy that they believed enough that we could do it. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but it's my story of stepping into Neighbours.
I give you a lot of credit for that. Let us reintroduce you really quickly. It's Delta Goodrem. I want to talk about, or Lori and I want to talk about, the two new songs you have, Keep Climbing and Paralyzed, but I want to go old school for a second. Can we talk about your cover of The Darkness, I Believe in a Thing Called Love? Because I loved it, and I love them. And Justin Hawkins is just a badass motherfucker, if you ask me.
Totally.
But when they first got here to America, I feel like people weren't really sure if it was tongue-in-cheek, if they were serious. But, you know, beneath it all, there really were solid songs. And I think your reading of it shows that that really is a solid song. And the way you reinterpret it as a ballad. I also loved your cover of Down Under, because I always saw that as sort of like a raucous, silly song. But you turned it into this torch song, like, "I come from a land down under." And I'm like, I'm sorry. But how did you come to cover The Darkness in the way you did?
Well, actually, it was all credits to my brother. My brother said to me, he goes, it was his wedding song. He goes, I've picked my wedding song. And what he calls these things like Land Down Under, they says, just do your piano thingies on them. Just go to the piano and do a piano thingy. I said, a piano thingy. And so basically he said, I'd love you to do this for our wedding for him and my beautiful sister-in-law. And I said, I played like, can't explain all the feelings, and did the whole thing. And I was like, what is my brother thinking for his wedding? And then the lyrics, like you're saying, I believe in anything called love. Just listen to the rhythm of my heart. There's a chance we can make it now. We'll be rocking till the sun comes up. Like, what a great lyric. So I fell madly in love with the song. And now I sing it at all my concerts as well and feel like it's just the most beautiful lyric. It's like, if I believe in a thing called love. Me too. It's such a great song.
Well, I wanted to ask you about also during quarantine, I caught you with Gary Barlow on Gary Barlow's daily podcast. Well, not podcast, where he would get people together all across the world. I mean, I couldn't miss an episode of it because I just loved finding who was he going to bring in next. And you were one of the people that he brought in. Was it You've Got a Friend? I'm trying to remember.
You've Got a Friend. Yes, You've Got a Friend.
So tell me about how Gary does these and who chose that, because I think it's amazing the way he's able to bring people together from all around the world and make it sound like you're in the same damn room.
Gary has a heart of gold, and I think that, like what a lot of musicians I know, or people in the arts, when you want to send love into the world, I think that he was just going, let's make people's day better, and let's do some duets. And he reached out and just emailed me, because Gary was one of the first producers I ever worked with when I was a teenager. I started in the industry, and he's been a great kindred ever since. And we wrote, we had a couple hits together, and so then he just reached out and said, I was like, absolutely. And he said, just choose a song, play it and send to me, and he just quick like this, so quick. I was going, oh gosh, what song should we do? Like, what song? And then I eventually realized that I felt like maybe we should do You've Got a Friend. And it felt like the right song to kind of send to Gary. So I sent it, and within 5 minutes, Gary sends back, how is this? I'm going, how did you harmonize? I'm not even on a click track. I'm just doing it for you. So he's a master. He's a master in the studio, that guy.
I love him. Before
you leave us, we're going to have to talk about The Voice, because Lori and I are cliche as it gets. But I wanted to ask you about this. I'd forgotten actually about that song enough, where it's just this beautiful plaintive ballad, and then that rapper Jizzle comes in. And for those who don't know, she's a female rapper. She's American, but she was like a ghostwriter for Snoop Dogg. How did you guys hook up, and what made you think to put a rap on what is basically like kind of a plaintive ballad, which is beautiful, by the way?
Well, there was an actual melody to it originally, but it was that, I think that the toughness of, I'd wanted somebody to sort of write a story about sort of amongst that, what do I got to say? What do I got to, when it's not enough for you? Like, what have I got to do? And I guess I had this vision of that piano feeling, and then having a beautiful rap over the top of it. And Jizzle was just somebody who had crossed paths, and she wrote the most beautiful words over the top of it, and inspiring and empowering. And it felt like the right connection. And she came to Australia, and we performed it in numerous performances. But that's one of my favorite songs on the records, actually. And it's when we get to perform that live, my drummer steps in, and he ends up doing the rap, albeit probably not as well as Jizzle, but he does a good job. The Australian accent kind of throws it off a little bit.
I would dig Australian rap.
Yeah, well, there is some great ones, don't kid me, but Jizzle has such an amazing intonation that it's definitely we miss her on the road.
Well, Nik alluded to The Voice, and you've been doing the Australian voice for many seasons, and now you're supposed to be in the UK right now doing the UK voice. So how are you? But I've looked on your Instagram. Are you still doing it just from afar?
We just finished our season here. So even though the pandemic hit mid-season for us, we stopped filming. We'd filmed the blinds and the battles. We'd gotten our team. And then the pandemic hit, and then we had to work out new ways, because obviously Kelly Rowland and Boy George couldn't fly over to film with us. So we found the screens to put into the chairs. I mean, they did a phenomenal job considering the circumstances. Everybody was wearing their masks. Everybody was social distancing. We couldn't hug the artists when they were crying, which was the hardest part. But the show, it was definitely different. Definitely a different season.
Well, it's funny because Lori and I have talked about The Voice here in America. It's funny because it's, it's a great showcase, but a lot of the artists that come out of The Voice don't really go anywhere here in America. Whereas there in Australia, you've coached the winning team a couple of times. And I got to figure you've got to be probably the best coach there is, because as you mentioned, you were signed at like, no, seriously, you were signed at like 15. So you, to some degree, have a pretty keen insight as to what these kids are going through, because you probably got all the bad advice that they're about to get, so you can steer them in a direction. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I've made every idiot move you could imagine along the way too. So every time I've done that, it's been a total pearl of wisdom just to impart on the artists. I love mentoring. I love coaching my artists. I've been there 9 years, and it's so fun seeing the artists experience their dreams and their first moment on stage, and it kind of takes me back. And I still have so many dreams too, but like being able to share their dreams become my dreams for them. And that's what ends up happening. And I remember one of the coaches one season said, Delta, you get so invested in that. And I'm like, I don't know any other way to be. I can't do anything half-assed. Like if you're gonna, it's all or nothing. I'm there. I'm, the psychologist through it. And I really enjoy seeing how different artists approach it. When it comes to how they have hits after the show, you try your best just to step by step and help everyone. But I guess it's just finding the vision and navigating the waters.
Don't disrespect the half-ass. I've made a career of doing things half-ass, Missy. Let me tell you something.
I actually highly doubt that.
I just like to make Lori laugh sometimes because she's like, it's true.
No. But it was really great to talk with you, Delta, because obviously I love the Olivia Newton John movie so much. And, just talking to you right now, it just feels like you're going to end up over here doing something. Do you come to America via the UK? Like, is that your ultimate plan?
I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to, even though we're all connecting from different parts of the world, I'm definitely intending to spend a lot more time over there with you all and be able to release this new music and the new album and hopefully when everything opens up to do a lot of shows over there and share the songs live.
What is the new album going to be called? And again, two-part question. I always find it really fascinating when artists, particularly from places like Oz or the UK or even New Zealand, whatever, when you come over to America, I'm always, especially now, I'm always curious as to what your perception of America was versus when you get here, because like I'm old school. I've been doing this for a long time. And I remember when, I would talk to artists from like the UK and they were like, oh, I thought everything was like Dallas or Dynasty. I'm like, no, it's not at all.
I mean, I've always had incredible experiences in the US, and I have spent a lot of time there because we really would work with some of the most amazing writers and producers, and the magnitude of experience in the arts as well that you can find I spend a lot of time in Los Angeles. And so New York is the most exciting, beautiful like city. You can walk around. I've spent different moments amongst being in the US, and so I guess I kind of feel like there was a part of me that grew up there too, and we get all your TV shows and all your radio, so we feel a big part of American culture with us as well.
Well, on behalf of Lori and I, we'd like to apologize since you're getting all right. Really. So again, when is the album coming? We have 2 singles. We have Keep Climbing. We have Paralyzed, both of which fantastic. Shout out to you.
Thank you. The album should be at the beginning of next year, and we've got a few more songs to drop throughout the next couple of months, and all the live musicians on there. It's completely live, piano centric, and a lot of stories to tell.
So wait, so you have dates booked to tour in 2021? You think we're going to get there? Because Lori and I talk about this all the time on the show. Here in America, people are starting to try to tiptoe into the water of live performance, and I'm like, I'm not ready yet. Are you comfortable?
Well, I think every country's at a different stage right now. So when it comes to Australia and New Zealand, we have been working closely with the venues and checking in, and in making sure that we had the venues booked for April, May. I went out first and said, I'm going to put it out there that we've got something to look forward to. And safety is the most important thing at all times. But I just wanted to have something to look forward to. And April, May is when it is. And that's what I'm holding faith to and hope. And if it's not, we move. But that's where we're heading right now. And I intend to be healing through music. And in Australia and New Zealand, we can't get over to, we can't go traveling just yet. We know that. But the second that everything opens and it's safe to go, we will.
Okay. The two new songs are spectacular. Keep Climbing and Paralyzed. Love them. Please come and see us when you can get to New York and we can hug.
And
Yay! Oh, won't that be nice?
When nobody dared to
go. Love that we came to know.
They call it Xanadu.
Now we are here. All right, Delta Goodrem, thank you so much for your time. God bless, stay safe, and thank you for joining us here on Feedback. God bless you.
Take care, Delta.
Thanks, guys.